Hi, my name is Bucki Lopez. I am a program coordinator here at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about the International Space Station before we get to talk to the astronauts actually in space. So we'll start with learning about what is actually going on in space. So what are they actually doing on the International Space Station? What kind of science are they doing? What kind of engineering? So this picture is of Janet Epps. This picture was taken this year, and she's doing an experiment to see how humans and how our cells, how all the parts that make up the humans will survive in space, living in space. So here on Earth, we are used to experiencing gravity, right? But in space, we're going to experience something called microgravity, or what astronauts on the ISS are experiencing is called microgravity. So their bodies are experiencing environments that are very different from what we're used to here. So there are experiments happening to see what would happen to long-term exposure to these types of environments, to zero gravity and to living in space. Another experiment happening in space is seeing what plants grow. So because these astronauts are orbiting at about 250 to 270 miles above the planet, anything that they use, anything they consume, food, water, has to be transported to the International Space Station. And if we want to go even farther away than just these 250 miles from the Earth, we want to be able to bring our own food so that we don't have to bring years' worth of supplies and use up all the cargo space we have just on food. So here is astronaut Peggy Whitson. This was in 2002, and she's growing strawberry plants and soy and trying to see if these plants actually germinate, if these plants produce seeds, if they'll produce food that we can consume, and if that food is going to be a viable source of food for future missions, for longer missions. And of course, when you grow food, you also want to make sure that you taste it, make sure that it is consumable. So here are astronauts in 2021 doing a taste test of chili peppers that were grown entirely in space, from seed to plant to fruit. And another experiment that is happening is called the Cold Atom Lab. So this is Christina Koch. This is in 2020. So what Christina's doing here is updating the hardware of the Cold Atom Lab. Atoms on Earth are experience a certain temperature. We here on Earth experience the temperatures that we're used to, but in space it's very, very different. It gets really, really cold. There's very little heat. The temperature is so low that atoms start to behave a little bit differently from what we're used to. So what we're studying here are the atoms and the quanta, the little particles that make up those atoms, seeing how they behave at these really, really cold temperatures. Another experiment that is more towards the engineering, the aerospace, is the material testing. So this is Miria Finkenor, one of the astronauts, one of the scientists who study these materials back on Earth. These materials have gone to space. So the picture on the left there shows materials that are sticking out of the side of the International Space Station. And they are exposed to the radiation, to the temperature, to the solar radiation, everything that an object would experience when it's in space, such as objects that spacecraft is made of. Even the International Space Station, those materials had to be tested to see how they last, what happens to them, what kind of fatigue they experience, because if we're going to be building spaceships or spacecraft or even more space stations out of them, we want to make sure that they can last in those environments, which are very different from what we experience on Earth. Another thing that happens on the International Space Station that's very important is that the space station is modular. It was built to be added onto, to have other labs added or removed. So this is a spacewalk with astronauts John B. Harrington and Michael Lopez Alegria. And they are attaching a new portion of the space station. And this was back in 2002 when the International Space Station was still relatively new. So they're attaching another lab, another portion to the United States lab on the International Space Station. So they have to train to not just be inside the space station, they also have to train for spacewalks. Something else that astronauts do is look at the Earth. So because they're only about 250 miles from the Earth, they're still close enough that they can monitor. They can take pictures, and they take really excellent pictures of what's happening. So the picture on the left is of Mount Etna, and this was back in 2001 when it erupted. And they were able to monitor the eruption and where the smoke was going. They were able to send back pictures better than satellites could take. The pictures on the right are of the California wildfires from earlier this year. And again, they're monitoring how big they're getting. They're monitoring where the wind is blowing the smoke. So they're able to send back pictures and just keep an eye on the Earth. Astronauts on the International Space Station orbit the Earth about 16 times per day. That's every 90 minutes they orbit the Earth once. So they're keeping an eye out on everything that's happening on the surface and sending back pictures, incredible pictures that we get to see. Now, because the conditions on the International Space Station are so different from what we experience on Earth, it's really difficult to train for what you'll experience as an astronaut. So this is the Neutral Buoyancy Simulator. It is a lab, one of NASA's labs, and here astronauts are training before the International Space Station launched. This was back in 1994. They're training underwater with very similar gear to what they would be using, and they're simulating what it would feel like to be nearly weightless. Of course, water is different from the experience that they have in space because you have material that you're flowing through, right? In space, you wouldn't have that, but they're experiencing at least the somewhat weightlessness and low buoyancy that you would feel in space. And because scientists are in space for months at a time, weeks to months at a time, they have to live every day on the International Space Station. They're not just there for the day and then going back home. They live there and work there, and they have to do everyday things such as getting haircuts. So these are astronauts Butch Wilmore and Matthew Dominic earlier this year getting a haircut. So that is a specialized clipper that has a little vacuum attached to it so that the hairs don't go flying everywhere and get into all those wires you can see in the background. So they're living their everyday lives there, and they get really close, and they get to do things other than working all the time. Now, how do the astronauts actually get there? I mentioned that the International Space Station orbits over 200 miles above the Earth, and that may seem like really far away. When we think of the International Space Station, we think of it up in space. We think of it far away from our planet, but that's actually closer than it would be to drive across the state of Colorado, where we are right now. So it is still pretty far. It's much farther than usual planes fly. So this is a spacecraft that they used to use when it first launched. This is one of the space shuttles. This is Space Shuttle Endeavour. And this is one of the ways that astronauts were able to get to and from the International Space Station. And here is the Endeavour space shuttle attached to the space station. And here it is showing how it attaches with an arm. And the space shuttle would carry up these modular pieces that would attach to the space station. So not just transporting people, the crew, but also materials and even entire labs. Today, and more recently, we've been using Russian rockets called the Soyuz rockets to travel to the International Space Station. These usually launch out of the country of Kazakhstan, where astronauts, American and Russian cosmonauts, will board these rockets and they will reach the International Space Station, and not just the crew, but also any materials that they need, new experiments that are going up, experiments that are coming back, food, water, anything, any of the resources that they use. Today in America, because those were, we were mostly using Russian Soyuz rockets, we are also looking at making new ones that are maybe more efficient and don't require as much energy or don't waste as many materials to get to the International Space Station. So this is the Boeing Starliner. This was tested just earlier this year. You might have heard about it. So for the first time it was launched, and it went to the International Space Station carrying 2 astronauts who are currently up there. And this is one of the American companies that are making this kind of space flight possible again. And this is another one. This is the SpaceX Crew Dragon, and this is an illustration of the Crew Dragon docking to the International Space Station. But here is that same Crew Dragon attached to the Falcon 9 rocket, which is a really exciting concept because it is one of the first rockets that can return to the Earth safely and land again. So it's not using a new one over and over again, it's using the same one and landing it and reusing that same rocket, which is really important when we think about the sustainability of spaceflight. Now it looks like our connection with the astronauts is ready, so I will let you go and talk to the astronauts aboard the International Space Station.
Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
We are ready for the event.
ACR, this is Mission Control. Houston, please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is Houston ACR. How do you hear me?
We got you loud and clear. How us?
We hear you loud and clear. Please stand by for opening remarks.
Hi, I am Toy Massey, the founder and chief executive officer and visionary of the JEKL Institute for Global STEAM Equity and Access. With master's degrees in mechanical and nuclear engineering, research conducted in nuclear medicine, and a career that spanned industries of nuclear energy and aerospace, making the connection between engineering, medicine, and Mission 72's exploration goals was nearly seamless. JEKL intends to close the gap between access and opportunity for kids that look like me. Today, the Mission 72 crew allows us to envision our future selves investigating pharmaceutical manufacturing and advanced life support systems on and off Earth, and perhaps one day eliminating the disparities we see today in health and medicine. And now we will take our first question.
Hi, my name is Beatrice. I go to DSST Conservatory Green High School, and my question for you is, what kind of resources do you have to support serious illnesses or injuries while in space?
So, before we launch to come to space, we're very healthy, and that's part of the, the selection process right from the very beginning. And then we really make strides to make sure that we're physically in shape and healthy to come up here. We actually are in quarantine for a couple of weeks to make sure that we don't bring any types of problems or diseases or bacteria, viruses to our fellow crewmates who might have been up here for a little while. But there is a chance that, somebody could get sick in space from something, who knows if I don't know what, but anyway, they could get sick, and we do have a plethora of medical equipment. We're standing like right next to our backboard where if anybody had a problem, we had to help them. We would actually use this, strap them down, and Nick right here is opening the medical locker, and we have lots of medical packs. In addition to all of this type of equipment, we have doctors on console and mission control all the time, so if we have a problem, we can give them a call, and we have lots of capability for telemedicine, obviously because we're doing research as well as, we're prepared in case anybody has a problem or gets sick up here.
Hello, my name is Jose Torres. I come from DSST Conservatory Green High School. My question to you is, do astronauts have specific assignments, such as who makes what repairs if needed?
To the greatest degree possible, we try to train so that we're interchangeable, that any crew member here could be assigned to any task. Of course, we have specialties, and we'd like to be specialists in everything, but there's just not enough time to train to be a specialist in everything we're going to do. So we kind of divide that workload. It takes about 2 years to prepare for a long-duration mission, just with the training that we receive on the ground, to be ready to respond to whatever we need to up here. And then if we're up here for 6 months, it's really hard to know exactly what you're going to do every day during those 6 months. And so we train for generic skills to be able to adapt and respond to whatever particular situation gets thrown at us.
My name is Nahom, and I go to DSST Conservatory Green High School. And my question for the astronauts in the ISS was, how natural was it adapting to your new environment in space?
So, both of us are pretty lucky because this is not our first flight. The first flight is always interesting, and you don't even know what to expect. Unfortunately, we don't have a great anti-gravity simulator on Earth. The closest thing we have is for spacewalking, doing that in a neutral buoyancy laboratory, which means a big pool. But beside for that, just the normal tasks that we do up here, how we float around, how we eat, how we sleep, it's hard to really imagine that. So your first flight, it takes a lot of getting used to just those normal things. But second flight, it's amazing how your brain just remembers. Like I was ready, I didn't feel so good on my very first flight when we initially got to space, so I was sort of ready for that. But my brain just went, hey, you've been here before, you're fine. And I adapted right away, and to the point that it's easy to fly around, it's easy to prepare meals, it's easy to do those natural things like go to the bathroom because you've done it before. So I think it's just a testament to the human body that it's able to adapt so well and remember things even after a number of years.
Hi, my name is Yasek, and I go to Conservatory Green High School. And my question is, how do you resolve surprising and unexpected experiences while working in space?
Well, I love the question because I think both of us can say we've responded to surprising and unexpected situations in space. And I think the thing that ultimately prepares us to respond to those is all of the training that we do leading up to it. 98% of the training we do is to respond to, what do we do when things go wrong? And we hope that they never go wrong. So we're always preparing for what's the next thing that could go wrong and how do we fix that or how do we avoid that. And so that preparation on the ground pays dividends up here when things end up surprising you.
My name is Chris. I go to DSST Schools, and my question for you guys is, what have you seen in space that you've never seen before?
Well, some of those things we can't tell you about. No, I'm just joking. I think one of the coolest things is actually looking out the window, and we have the opportunity to do that because we have this amazing cupola, right? It is a round window that looks down for the most part, and then 6 windows around, and so you can see the edge of the Earth, you can see into the universe. It's just spectacular. And you can see aurora. I think everybody on Earth recently has seen aurora because of the solar activity, but it is just amazing from up here. We see it like coming into the Earth, so that's pretty spectacular. While we've been up here, we've also seen a comet. On sunrises and sunsets, you can see noctilucent clouds. I mean, looking out the window is just something special every single day you go. More recently, we've seen Starlink satellites, which is pretty cool. So there's all sorts of things to see that are surprising and interesting from this vantage point.
Hi, my name is McKenna, and I go to DSST Middle School. And does what you are doing in space help our environment on Earth?
Absolutely. The space station here is designed to do research, and some of that research is about the human body, some of that research is about how do we live and work in space, and some of that research is observing the Earth and paying attention to it and learning about the Earth. And so we have sensors on the outside of the space station that look down, and NASA also has a fleet of satellites that helps measure the moisture and carbon dioxide in the atmosphere so that we can study what's going on. One of the things I think is fun for us to do because it makes us feel like we're contributing to immediate impact is when there's a natural disaster, we'll get notification of that location on the ground and we'll provide imagery. We'll go to the windows and we'll take pictures of the natural disaster and send that down to the first responders so that it can help them respond to the situation. And that makes you really feel like you're part of that response. So it's a rewarding experience.
Hello, my name is Osman Ashmig. I am a senior at DST Montview. And my question is, I heard space feels like swimming. Do you mind describing that experience more? Thank you.
So it's sort of like swimming. You're sort of like a fish. You're sort of like a bird. That when you're swimming, you can pull your arm and you can move because there's a media right there, that water, right? Here, you can't do that. Nick can demonstrate. If you move your arm, you're not going to really move. But it is like flying like a bird because you're going through the air. But you know, you can turn yourself all around. It doesn't matter if you're upside right, upside down. You know, if you're in your sleep station, for example, which has a closed door, there's one on the ceiling, one on the floor, one on either side. As soon as you shut that door, your frame of reference is the way you are, and it doesn't even matter. We sort of keep an upright frame of reference here in the space station just for orientation, like letters are all written the same way, the lights are on the ceiling, but it doesn't really matter. If you turn yourself upside down, you can do the same things that you can do upside right, upside down, and we really take advantage of all that space on the walls, on the ceiling, on the floor. So, I don't know, your question was simply, what's it feel like? It's awesome. It's wonderful. There's lots of opportunities because of it.
Hi, my name is Milky. I go to DSST Conservatory Green High School, and my question is there a plan to use the ISS for educational purposes after it's retired?
You know, I think the whole space station is used to educate. Right now we're inside the U.S. laboratory, and so we have facilities that where we're studying material science. We have incubators where we're growing cells and cultures, and right over there, you know, you can't see it off the camera, is the coldest spot in the universe, or in our known universe. So it's one of these amazing places, and we bring that education. It's the showcase behind everything that we do, and so a big part of what we do is share that data, share that learning, and that's to the scientists on the ground, and that's also to the students in the schools.
Hi, my name is Alexa de la Vega. I am from Conservatory Green High School, and my question to you guys is, what is the most magical thing you have seen out the windows of the space station?
The most magical thing that you have seen out the windows of the space station.
Thank you. The most magical thing, I think, is probably the aurora, just because it just makes you think about the universe and where we are. But if we look out the window, most of the time we see water, and you can see that is really what dictates everything about human life and our planet. We're going to give you a little demonstration right here. Nick is going to show you what water in the form of orange drink looks like, because you can see it a little bit better. But water is fascinating in space, and it dictates everything about our planet. It dictates everything we do. We use water to separate hydrogen and oxygen to get air. We reclaim all the water through sweat and through urine, so that this closed system, humans can live on it. Water just really is everything about human life, and I think that is probably the most magical thing, is when you realize that for the first time and understand the physics of it. So it's pretty awesome.
Hi, my name is Dayanara Herrera Gomez. I attend Conservatory Green High School, and I'm a junior. How do you prepare? My question for you guys is, how do you prepare for an unexpected and unplanned extended stay?
I think I'm going to defer that question to Sunny.
Sure, I'll take that one. So, you know, we planned on coming up here for about, 8 to 10 days, but we really thought it was going to be a couple weeks, because when you do a test flight, there's always something that you learn and you might want to investigate a little bit more. Now, the idea of staying for 8 months was not really on the top of my mind when we initially signed up for this flight, but I've already been on the space station 2 other times for long duration flights, and like Nick said, we've all done the training so that we can do all the activities here, at least have the foundational knowledge so we can adapt and do some on-the-job training, OJT, while we're up here. Butch and I are both prepared for spacewalks or robotic operations, whatever the space station needs. And so once that decision was made, the mindset changes. You're like, okay, now I'm here for a while, so I got to settle in, I got to find all my clothes, find my food, make myself at home and maybe slow down the pace a little bit so I know that I'm running a marathon and not a sprint anymore. But still, in the back of their mind is the test and evaluation attitude and understanding the situation where we're at and how we can make it better and offer some suggestions for future flights.
My name is Ethan and I'm from 11th grade. My question is it possible for astronauts to get space sickness from the movement of the spacecraft?
You know, space sickness, motion sickness, space adaptation sickness is a real thing, and it affects a majority of astronauts the first time that they get to space in the first day or two as your body tries to adjust, because inside our head, our inner ear is trying to decide which way is up and which way is down, and it uses gravity. And because we're floating, our inner ear can't really sense which way is up and which way is down, and so that disorients you a little bit, and it's different than how you look with your eyes. And so that miss between how you visually see things and what your inner ear is hearing, that makes you feel queasy, that makes you feel sick. But after a few days, and this is just miraculous how adaptable the human brain is, that after a few days, your mind just really stops listening to your inner ear, and it just uses visual cues. And so Sunny just did that flip, and she finishes the flip, and it's like she never flipped at all. It's not like when you're on the ground and you're in a chair and you spin around and around and around, and then you stop the chair, but your eyes keep spinning. Up here, it's like you were never spinning at all, because your mind just isn't listening to a part of it that it trusted for years beforehand. So we are extremely adaptable.
Hi, my name is Harmony. Hi, my name is Melody. What is it like to see Earth on outer space?
So, you know, people ask me what my favorite planet is, because I think people think you're going to say something like Saturn because it's beautiful, but I have to say Earth is the most wonderful planet. And Earth is awesome because I think about it, and you can be in your bathing suit on Earth, right? Other planets you can't be, because we are human beings. We grew up on Earth. Earth is just amazing. So when you look out the window and you see Earth below you, I was mentioning earlier a lot about the ocean and how amazing that is. But then you come across some piece of land, and you can't help but thinking, like, how did that form? Like, were those pieces put together and then they broke apart? How do the plates work? When I see the Himalayas, I think to myself, about India, it probably crashed in and it made this big wrinkle in the Earth. And it makes you look at the Earth from that perspective, more like a planet, and wondering how all that stuff happened. And it also, just, to tie make the bow there, it also makes you realize that that's where everybody we know is. Every person, every plant, every animal. And it's an amazing place, and it makes you more appreciative. I wish everybody had a chance to take a lap around our planet to see it from that perspective.
Hi, my name is Pablo Moreno, and my question is, how do you cope with the most challenging aspects of living and working in space?
Initially, when you think about the most challenging things we do, you think about the most complicated and most difficult tasks. And, fortunately, like, if you were thinking about something really complicated, it's doing a spacewalk. You focus in a spacewalk on the two people that go out to hatch and that do the spacewalk, but the reality is we have a team of hundreds of people that have helped train us and prepare us for that moment, and then are also supporting us real time. And so those challenges we handle as a team. And I think what my time on orbit has given me a perspective about is the challenges we face in life still involve a team, and it's the family and the friends and the loved ones that are there to support us through all the challenges that we face throughout our life, whenever they may happen, whatever they may be. That's where you have that support system, and that's probably one of the more difficult things. The downside of being on the space station is that separation from your family and your friends and loved ones.
That was amazing. Wasn't that amazing? I would like to thank NASA and the astronauts of the International Space Station for sharing their insights with our scholars, including the amazing DSST CubeSat team, the Robert F. Smith STEAM Academy, and the University Prep scholars, our elementary schools that are on their way. We would also like to thank today those who participated with us on site, our government leaders, our VIP aerospace leaders, and our distinguished community, boots on the ground, always there, prepared and mentoring our students, those leaders especially. We would like to thank the Denver Museum of Nature and Science for making this very possible for us to convene in one space and to enjoy this. And we would also like to thank over 10,000 students that have joined us today from across the state of Colorado and the United States. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Station, this is Houston ACR. Thank you. That concludes our event.
Thank you to all participants. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications.